bam, bam, bam. What a stark contrast to last series, whatever the saying is. Either way, it's completely different. Number one, because there's ZVZ and there was no Zerg in the last series. But also, the point I'm trying to make is the last series, I think the first 4 games were about as long as the first game when combined that we saw here. So we've seen the long macro game so far in Game 1. But let's go ahead and introduce our players. In the center left side, it is going to be DarKFoRcE. And up on the top center side, it is going to be Nerchio.
And it is now on the largest map in the map pool. It's going to be Metropolis, which does tend to function a little bit oddly when compared to your average ZVZ map.
Yes.
Weirdly, the roaches do tend to be the strategy du jour. It's a little bit hard to get away with going for something like a really fast Ling, Infestor, Ultra type tech, just due to the fact that with the spread outedness, it's too difficult to cover all that space. A Roach player can see you teching a little quickly and instantly double expand to the neighboring main and natural expansion. And there's just not that much you can do about it. So I would pretty much anticipate a big Roachy mid-game, or the possibility of Mutalisk popping in there. I mean, DarKFoRcE used those in the last game, but I'm anticipating roaches. Probably players even doing some cute ultra early upgrades to help contribute to that.
I sure hope so, Day 9, because I want to see Ultralisk. I'm just telling you, the last time I saw Ultras in a ZVZ, it was absolutely epic. And also, one thing to note is that the Overlords, just based on the spawn locations alone, they're going to get their opponent's base right away. They're going to know exactly what's going on here. For example, Nerchio's Overlord is just now going to be arriving at the base. He sees no spawning pool, so he already knows it's going to be a hatchery first. We do see the spawning pool into gas here for Nerchio. And Day 9, you're saying this map is huge. The build orders that we're seeing right now, are they going to play a huge role in the early game?
Well, what we're seeing from both players is the favoring of the early gas. DarKFoRcE, who is indeed going for the early expand, still gets his gas guys are up ASAPly, and Nerchio doing the same. Speed is essential on this map. This is one of the maps that will really demonstrate why Lings tend to be favored in the early game. I honestly think that we will see fast third bases before layer, very possible. But for the most part, probably a lot of droning, probably a lot of general long-term play. Neither of these players is too big a fan of trying to end it immediately.
And that's exactly what we saw in the last game, where their builds, you could tell they weren't even trying to do an all-in timing attack at all. They were moving in with maybe 8 Lings in the early stages, and that's it. 1 Baneling for both players, able to clean that up here. And then we also saw in the mid, and sort of transitioning into late game, I suppose you could say, that they were relatively even in those exchanges back and forth. I did love the Burrowed Infestor play, but at the same time was able to swing in with Mutas to clean that up and once again even it out. So this is actually kind of a great matchup that we have so far as the play style and play level that they're playing at has been relatively even. And even now you can see 4 Lings versus 6 Lings. There's not going to be major losses for either player. It's not like these Lings are going to run past and get a surround on the retreating Lings. There's not going to be any major damage dealt. You're mentioning early speed, and that's what they've got.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking kind of like the last game, but look at that. DarKFoRcE actually getting the Spine Crawler up, but no Baneling Nest. Players do like to cut that Baneling Nest a little bit later. There it is, finally going down now, just due to the fact that the distances are so big. So we'll still see some droning out of both players, but probably around 45, 50 food. Would not be surprised at all to see a third hatch at an expansion.
Yeah, you're mentioning those Baneling nests. These are definitely defensive Banelings. We see this a lot in ZVZ, whereas in the past it used to be Baneling timings. You just rush in with your first Banelings as quickly as you possibly could, hope for those big hits. But now with the Queen's able to eat up an endless amount of Banelings, you need to be careful here with your Lings out in the center going versus that Zergling speed. There are a couple of seconds here where they will be vulnerable, but by the time they retreat back home, they are going to indeed have that Zergling speed. Does manage to intercept the Speedlings with a couple of his slower Lings there, something very difficult to do, but he preemptively did it. And once again, I mean, I think it's just going to come down to the droning and the saturation on these bases, because the build orders, once again, not doing that much damage. He does morph in 6 Banelings here and 10 Lings on the way, so I guess he is going to try and be aggressive here.
Oh, DarKFoRcE looks like he very much so wants to get that third base up. He is going to be doing a big attack, and the only strong way to follow up an attack in this fashion is to expand, but no, Nerchio has an answer by sending a little counterattack force of Lings, now moving up to the main base, and with this information, Nerchio's seeing, oh my god, why is my opponent building so frickin' many Lings? And up at the front, we're going to see a lot of Banelings constructed for Nerchio.
It does look like they're retreating right now, though, so they don't actually have any reinforcements, but you know what's kind of interesting about what Nerchio did right there Well, number one, he is supply block, so he has to be careful, but he also is able to pull back the Lings long enough to potentially buy him enough time to get these Spine Crawlers up. He's got the Queens on the ramp right now. It's going to be tough to break. You need to be careful with the Queens, though, not to go past the ramp. Need to put those on hold position. Bailing hits go down. Some of the drones get taken out. And we're just kind of waiting to see, once the dust settles, how much damage has been dealt. The Lings do run in the main base. This could be exactly what he needs.
And it looks like immediately going for those drones up on the gas side. How many will he get? It looks like DarKFoRcE hasn't really killed off that many, but boom, suddenly the numbers erupt, and 11 workers total have been killed off. We see more droning, more macro going up behind all this stuff. A couple of Nerchio's banelings now moving out onto the offensive, and suddenly in the unit station we see that there is a 37-27 drone lead for DarKFoRcE.
And that is going to be huge. Great decision making here by both players in the initial attack by Nerchio to buy time. I think the supply block is really hurting him in there, though, as he is now trying to make another Overlord, but his resources are hovering quite high. Could be going for that third base as well to try and catch back up, as he is going to be scouting now down to the third base. Realizes, okay, I'm still in this. There's no third base there quite yet. I just got to sit back, drone up, try and take out some of these banelings. Need to be careful, though. 2 banelings for 2. That's going to favor the defender, because that means his drones are no longer vulnerable to those big baneling hits. And you can see Nerchio trying to focus down drones, but is he going to be able to equalize? Yeah, he did actually here. 36-34 right now. Able to do the amount of damage he needs. And both players, you can see, immediately trying to drone up again to get any sort of edge. The lair tech, though, has just about finished here for DarKFoRcE.
I mean, that's kind of an interesting choice for DarKFoRcE to follow that up with a layer tech. I mean, if you think about it, the layer tech, what are you going to be rushing for? Either Infestors or Mutalisks. Knowing DarKFoRcE, he'll probably go down the Mutalisk tech line, but I just don't see how that helps after the damage he did, and expand is much more common after you do the economic damage. DarKFoRcE trying to do those poke-ins. There is finally the expand going down for DarKFoRcE at the bottom left side, so we will see that he's going to have a little bit of an advantage on the economy, but, you know, if you do economic damage, push your economic edge, expand, get an upgrade up. Your opponent, I mean, Nerchio has to be defensive right now. He must. So if you get Mutalisks, you're still going to run into defense, you know?
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to be, you know, if there's any build order or any transition that Nerchio can most prepare for, it will be those Mutalisks. We do see getting down the Evo Chamber himself, which means Spore Crawlers should be ready in time for those Mutalisks if he decides to go for a lot of mutas, or he could decide to sit back on that tech just for a little bit and expand. I mean, he has the expansion here, but he could fully saturate it as well. And the third base finally going to be going down here for Nerchio, as he does have a drone on the way down there to go ahead and secure that one right now. The Queen really pissed off at his Overlord. Is that Overlord going to get away? Gets away with 1 HP there. That Overlord is just bleeding out. I don't know how you're floating for that long after getting punctured so many times by those darts, but regardless, the expansion here may get canceled, and no, doesn't cancel it there. That's a lot of wasted resources. Might even lose the roaches here if he's not too careful, and he is going to get a big surround right now, and 1 or 2 roaches will fall. Transfuses on one of the roach, but unfortunately, 1 transfuse on a roach, which he would have loved to save that hatchery instead of the roach, so that's going to be a pretty tough spot for him right now.
Now, I want to just point out how brilliant this follow-up transition is from DarKFoRcE. I mean, Nerchio's doing his best to stay alive, and look at that, relying a little bit more on the Infestor tech to help him be defensive. Some movement going down to the bottom left, but what's DarKFoRcE doing? 8 Mutalisks popping out, but he's not really going to be building any more than that. He's going to transition instantly into Roach Infestor, and he's going to be in a nice spot.
Yeah, the third base up here, though, for Nerchio. I've been keeping an eye on it. He's trying to get it planted down. Once again, a couple Lings do take out a Queen there. That is a huge victory. So many, like, big money victories here. Killing off the hatchery, killing off the Queens there. That's why he's a little bit ahead right now. And the units lost a couple Roaches are going to be coming down here right now, though, but the Mutalisks swooping into the main base. But they're swooping right in between a Queen and 2 Spore Crawlers. He's not watching these Mutalisks. He has so many, taking a ridiculous amount of damage there. You have to have better control than that. You can't afford to make mistakes, but right now he's a tiny bit ahead, so maybe he can just barely get away with it. But the drone count is suffering here as they are transferring away. The Mutalisks have dealt their damage, but they have to watch out for the Infestors. They're going to be popping out here in about a minute's time, actually less than that here. So at that point, I think those Mutalisks are just going to have to go on Overlord killing duty, which is a pretty easy task for a Mutalisk.
It really is. It's It's like trying to hunt prey who has no arms and no legs and are just furry balls, and you just put them into baskets and take them home to be eaten.
It's like every time I feed my praying mantis, I just put my hand in the cricket bucket, and then he gets to eat delicious, delicious crickets, which is somehow related to ZBZ because praying mantises look like they are a Zerg. But the Mutalisk got to be switching in here. Need to watch out for the fungals. He does not.
Gosh.
Eats every fungal right there. One Mutalisk gets away, but he's trying to engage
Oh,
a queen.
man.
Good night, Mutalisks. You got to remember he does have a slight economic edge, but I don't know that throwing away this many mutas is the right way to go about this.
Gosh, I mean, DarKFoRcE. I like Mutalisks as a general concept on this map. It's huge, you can bounce back and forth between your lots of bases easily, but man, DarKFoRcE darts into the main. He rushed for the Mutalisks, and now he's lost most of the Mutalisks. I mean, that was a pretty hefty fall behind there by DarKFoRcE, but even so, DarKFoRcE has placed himself into such a nice position. He's at 70 workers. He already is going for the Infestor tech. He has geysers at his third up. Nerchio does not have geysers at his third even started, so now that they're beginning, he will start to be able to continue that Infestor count, but I'm feeling a lot better in DarKFoRcE's shoes. The way he really needs to press his edge is by getting a macro hatch up. I don't think he can quite afford to get that fourth base up, even though that's, well, it's exactly what he does, but it's a little bit of a risky maneuver. I mean, already you know that your opponent has way more Infestors. You're leaving yourself open to an attack.
Now, one thing to note is that DarKFoRcE is ahead in supply. He has a lot on the production tab, but he actually doesn't have that much, excuse me, because I'm wondering what all these resources are going to be invested in, because if he, say he loses the game right now, he would have lost having about a couple thousand resources saved up. He does dump them into a lot of roaches. The 2 attack on the way here for both players. Going to be finishing up around the same time. Nerchio is going to throw away a couple roaches here on the left side. He was trying to poke in somewhere, see if he could do some economic damage, but he is instead going to suffer for that, and at this point he really can't afford to lose that many units. Is going to lose the Overseer maybe on the left side. Nope, not going to quite go down as it is hovering. Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, he gets
almost survived with 1 HP again, but it was not meant to be repeated. And we do have the Hydralisk Den on the way for Nerchio here. And considering that Nerchio is a little bit behind right now, Day 9, do you like this Hydralisk Den?
I generally do like this concept. Again, if you get your Infestors up way earlier, and you have that huge Infestor lead, it's an excellent way to replace the supply you'd initially invest in roaches, and then you can get a big timing push on 3 bases. And it looks like DarKFoRcE going for his trademark 1 or 2 roaches here or there, but man, Nerchio just gobbles those up with fungals and nice concaves. There's a couple that do manage to make their way to the natural expansion, and one that makes its way into the main, but things are looking very good for DarKFoRcE, and that tactic allowed him to finish that 4th.
And also killed off, it was, I think, just a singular drone with that roach in the main base, but again, it gets him out of position. And yes, roaches may seem very fast with the speed on the creep, but at the same time, if you're buying your time by delaying that, then you're able to get up those bases as you're mentioning, and you can see that it has been effective. Nerchio just now getting up his own 4th base. We do have Hive Tech on the way, but is it going to be Ultras, or is it going to be Broodlords, or is it just for a lot of extra upgrades? All I know, Day 9, is that I want to see Ultralisks, so I hope that it's Ultralisks.
Oh my god, in that case, Mike, there's a lot of possibility for Ultralisks to happen. I don't know. Is it okay to get your hopes up? I honestly want to see Ultralisks as well.
I want to see Ultralisks
It's
as
looking
well.
a lot more like a transition into Broodlords, though. The Hydra Infestor composition, as you start to lose roaches, then you put Broodlords in there, and suddenly you have Hydra Infestor Broodlord, which works out very, very nicely in a Zerg versus Zerg. Easily defended against pretty much anything that a Zerg player could throw at you. But it looks like, ooh, I like this choice for DarKFoRcE. Continuing on the counterattack theme, we have drops.
Oh, that is an interesting choice right there, especially in the late stages. A lot of times you'll see Nidus Worms utilized. The problem is, though, is that Zerglings are so quick that you can Nidus the right side base and the left side base at the same time, and Zerglings will still get there in time to deny it. And there's the Hive Tech on the way for DarKFoRcE, and it is Double Spire now on the way here for Nerchio. That's going to be, as you're mentioning, most likely for Broodlords. Could get out those upgrades. And you got to remember, Broodlords versus ZBZ is kind of an interesting thing, because your opponent, really the only way to deal with it is get more Corruptors than your opponent has, and then it's a very dicey maneuver, like how many Broodlords versus how many Corruptors do I get?
If you look in the middle of the map by the ramp, you see an Overlord heading up with 4 Infestors in it. DarKFoRcE is starting to move up to the top side now that he's finished all those Spine Crawlers. I mean, if only there was like a Spine Crawler counting station, that would be so cool. but we see that there's no Overlord coverage on the top side. Again, a benefit to having opened Mutalisks, your opponent a little bit more reluctant to move those Overlords out. But Nerchio's moving with a large timing push. The spine wall is tremendous, and I do think, though, that this big swell of, ooh, 2 more Overlords in the middle, starting to move down, too. Ooh. Mega drops coming in.
Indeed, it does look like some Roach is going to get intercepted in the center of the map, but that's going to be okay here. It's what you have to watch out for is that drop inside the main base. The Corruptors are going to spot this. They know something is amiss. That means these Infestors are left for themselves. They messed up a fungal there as well. DarKFoRcE wasting a lot of energy there. Just throws out all the infested Terrans and does burrow to try and get away, but Fungals are going to clean those up. Always interesting to watch Infestors kill each other with energy alone. And those Infested Terrans did actually no damage. The Infestors are still alive. Does Nerchio realize that? We'll see if he brings over an Overseer or not. But regardless, no damage dealt there. Both players, though, are rushing towards maxed out. DarKFoRcE does have double Spire on the way. Does that mean he has 3 Spires? I think he's going to have 3 Spires. I don't think I've ever seen 3 Spires. Am I crazy? Is there going to be 3 Spires day 9? Yes, there is 3 Spires.
Oh my gosh, the triple Spire. I have no idea why, but it looks like another drop at the right side, and Nerchio with some excellent reactions, just cleaning everything up. We do see that the 3 Infestors lived in the main. What? In the middle, also a huge swell of Roaches trying to advance up, but Nerchio is on point with those Fungals.
Gonna deny those from getting right up in there. Does eventually lose that Infestor, but again, we still are kind of waiting for a massive, massive battle to happen because both armies are nearly maxed out. So yes, he can force Nerchio to swing back and forth, but he's not going to deal the damage he needs until he can get in that drone line, which is actually what he's doing right now. Is some of the Roaches have been left in that drone line. The Infestor saying, hey, we're still here. Actually, no, that's a new drop, which means that his other 3 Infestors are probably forgotten about, although the Overseer got to be able to spot that here. The Infestors once again fungaling those infested Terrans. The Roaches on the right side do unburrow, but where are they going? They're like grabbing all the aggro. This is like that guy in WoW who just aggroes every single unit and
Leroy
wipes the
Jenkins
raid.
style.
Oh, is this another drop though on the right side? It does look like it, as I gotta hand to DarKFoRcE. If he can actually pull this off, it would be huge, especially going up against the much slower moving Broodlords. But he himself does have the Broodlord tech on the way and a lot of money. Let me say that again, a lot of money saved up to get out a crazy amount of Corruptors.
And there's the next push on the right side of the map. While all this is going on, DarKFoRcE is not having any issue with his 4th and 5th bases, fully saturated with gas. Wow. And Nerchio, look at the workers killed. 39 have been eliminated right now. It does look like DarKFoRcE is behind on drones nonetheless, but that means there's a ton of larvae that have been devoted to getting all dem extra drones
up. Oh my god, day 9, 13 Corruptors on the way, and they're going to be going up against 13 Corruptors, so the army composition is going to be relatively even. He does have a Broodlord advantage, though. 6 Broodlords, 9 Hydras, 14 Roaches, up against 16 Infestors. So the control of the Infestors are going to be vital here. The Overlord drops getting spotted on the right side as that awkward moment when an Overlord full of Infestors flies into Corruptors. He might lose the Overlord. Yes, he does!
He loses
I don't know the math on that, but an Overlord plus 4 Infestors is a lot of resources lost right now. He's very low on money, trying to use the Infestor hit squad in the northeast side, but it gets cleaned up. Unfortunately, his Infestor count was huge, but all of a sudden, he's only down to 8.
I mean, DarKFoRcE is almost doing these drops one at a time. One here, one there, and Nerchio is able to just relocate his army every single time. That needs to be more multi-pronged attack as opposed to a multiplexed attack.
Math jokes are awesome, but it does look like right now the Roaches got to be able to drop in the main here with the 2-1. He's going up against 2-2, though, so once the reinforcements arrive, should be able to hold this off with relative ease, and indeed he will. The Corruptor count is just so high, he's actually using Corruptors to clean out drops. I don't know if I've seen that in ZVZ almost ever, but as we were mentioning before, it's going to come down to the Corruptors trying to take down the Hive. That's not going to happen, though, as this is going to get cleaned up easily. Might as well just go for the drones at that point. But you can see the Broodlords, I mean, they move so slowly that they're almost never able to engage the army directly. But he does have 2 upgrades on the way for his air units. And I almost want to say that's more important for the Corruptors, as it denies your opponent's ability to get Broodlords. So he's going to be in pretty good shape here.
Gosh, I mean, the 2-2 on the air for Nerchio is looking mighty intimidating. And it's kind of funny to think that Nerchio has not actually attacked at all this game. He's just chilled and defended and deflected, and there's more puking going on. Oh my god, he's actually going to get the Hive. If he target fires the Hive and he takes it down, what are they target firing the Spore Crawler for? Ah, fungal! I mean, if he kills that off, then his opponent can't get 3-3 upgrades. And that'll be a great way to weaken the air superiority of Nerchio. But that didn't happen at all, Mike. The Hive's right there. He's fine.
And 6 Broodlords on the way now for DarKFoRcE. Let's take a look at the units tab here really quickly, because that's what's going to kind of speak volumes about this game. We have 22 Roaches versus 5, 18 Corruptors versus 5. The Broodlord count is favoring DarKFoRcE, but it's the Corruptors that can kill everything in the air. So I think the Corruptor count's the more important gauge as to who's actually going to be ahead. But the Infestor count is so high that if he gets Fungals on the Corruptors, they're taking the additional damage, and they might actually get cleaned out. So this could still go either way. Units lost is not that even, but at the same time, a lot of economic damage has been dealt to Nerchio.
You know, I think the big reveal is that if you just go to the Army supply, or the Army money representation tab, I don't know what it is, the Army tab, you'll see that there is still more gas in DarKFoRcE's army despite being over 20 food behind. He has so many more Infestors. 13 Infestors, 11 Broodlords, 5 Corruptors. There are 21 Corruptors out for Nerchio, and a couple of Fungals could annihilate all of them.
Indeed, that's why he's going to have to make sure to keep them split up perfectly. This is a very tense moment. Both players now basically jockeying for position. The Broodlord's going to engage. And here we go. This is going to be a ridiculous battle. The Fungals on the Broodlord's going to be doing insane damage here, but can he get the Fungals that he needs on the Corruptors? So far he hasn't been able to, but he is Fungling on the right side. Day9, I actually don't know what I'm watching.
Oh my gosh, there are so many Infested Terrans being thrown out right now, but if you look at the Corruptor count, there are still 19 Corruptors out for Nerchio. Where on earth are they? The food counts are fairly even, but this giant, massive Corruptors is ripping down all the Broodlords, but neither player really has that many Broodlords anymore. Nerchio, who began the battle with 6, now has 5, just due to the fact that there is so much defense there for his own. It's Broodlords firing at each other's Broodlings, and a ridiculous display of infinite unit in the circle Blood War style stuff going on, but no, Nerchio with his vastly superior Corruptor count.
22 Corruptors on the way.
GG!
Day9, every time I see Broodlord versus Corruptor,